Go live. All right, guys, we're live. Getting this live stream set up. Give me 1 second. Okay. Just testing out the stream. Okay. 1 second. This episode was everything. This episode was everything. Let's see. Okay. Just letting the live stream set up, but this episode was everything. Let me set some things up here. Okay, getting a few things in order. All right, so everything's set. This episode was everything I needed it to be, everything I wanted it to be, and finally, the Dance of the Dragons has begun. And the war's finally begun. This episode pretty much is a culmination of the last two seasons. And I feel like this is what everyone's been waiting for the dance to start, for the two sides to finally stake their claim. And man, I was hyped. This episode did everything I needed to be. I mean, where do I even begin? I'm looking through my notes here. Where do I begin? I think where do I begin? I think we got to begin here. So, guys, welcome to the Bin Zone. On today's episode, we're talking about House of the Dragon episode 4. Oh, man. If you guys haven't seen the show, spoiler ahead, we're just diving deep into it. R.I.P. Rhaenys. R.I.P. Rhaenys, because ultimately, I don't know, man. Like, I'm conflicted, because I feel like last week I was talking about her character and I was criticizing her, but seeing what she did, this episode was, I feel like, everything we were looking for in House of the Dragons. Everything we've ever asked them to do, they delivered. The dragon fight. Let me move this out. Let me move this out the way. The dragon fight. Wrong window. The dragon fight was everything that we asked for. I'm just so excited. I'm just hyped. I just need to take a second, breathe in a little bit, because they gave us dragon fights. They confirmed another theory that we all had. She knows about his bastard son, and she finds out when the episode, like, Rhaenys knew all along. I feel like this whole episode was her swan song, her goodbye to us. And as we're watching the episode, it's kind of like a slow crawl to see Rhaenys saying pretty much goodbye. She talked to her. She confirmed that is Corlys's bastard son. She looked at him. It looks like her husband. She knew that. When she saw Vhagar coming, she could have flew away, but she knew it was time. Like, it was her time. And I will say, I kind of feel bad for the dragons all in all. Like, just watching this episode, think about it. These dragons were all raised together. They all grew up in the same rook, the same house. and ultimately the Targaryens had them fight each other. That's kind of disgusting, right? Okay, I'm calm. I'm excited. So let's get into the episode. This week's episode was the most action-packed episode we've ever had in House of the Dragons, and the best dragon fight in Game of Thrones we've ever had. I mean, this is what we've always wanted to see. This is what the fans were craving. I don't know about y'all, but for me, this is what I wanted to see. Well, not this one. I don't like seeing the dragons get hurt, but watching the dragons fight was something I wanted to see since the first season. Since we saw Dragon Egg, since Daenerys did her thing, it's been on my mind. But we have to talk about pretty much the episode. So let's just dive into this episode and break it down like we usually do every week, bit by bit, beat by beat, and go through the episodes and see where the characters end up. And again, we're going to take a moment of silence for Queen Rhaenys, the queen that never was. Because even though I was critical of her, she went out like a G. Say what you want about her, she went out like a G. But let's start with the episode. And the episode starts off with Daemon. I'm going to keep Daemon's part towards the end because I want to talk about all of Daemon's scenes as one. Because I think I know where they're going with his character. Because so far he's not doing anything in the battle. But I feel like I know his character is going to play a major role. So we're going to just talk about the Council of the Greens. The episode starts off and we find ourselves with Aegon and his council. Yeah, I mean, let's start here. Aegon, we all knew Aegon was useless, but this episode really, it doesn't endear his character because we know he's a piece of shit, but this episode really shows us the dysfunction of the Green Council. We talked about it last week, and with Alicent and Rhaenyra's meeting last week, they're pretty much resolved to their fate. They both essentially chose their side. Alicent is gonna fight for her kids and her claim to the throne, and Rhaenyra now realizes this is bigger than her friendship. This is bigger than what she thought her and Alicent had. This is bigger than the realm. This is about the Song of Ice and Fire. Ultimately, this is about the Long Night, and we have to get there. So the stage is set, and the Greens are pretty much amassing their council. And at the council, we see that Aemon is talking to Criston Cole. The council is doing everything. Aegon's bored. Aegon as a character is interesting. I don't know. This episode, I felt a way about his character. I don't know if you guys felt the same, but a part of me kind of felt bad. Like, don't judge me, but a part of me kind of felt bad that, like, he didn't want it. If we're thinking about Aegon's character, if you guys remember last season, Aegon actually tried to run away. When they're going to coordinate him as king, he didn't want to be king. He tried to, remember last season, he tried to run away, and Aemon and them drug him back and made him king. Even though his character as a whole is despicable, I felt as though he didn't want this. They put this on him. He's a party bro. Aegon drinks, parties, has a good time with his friends, and that's pretty much all he wanted to do. But now that he's king, he has to show strength. He has to do all these things. And this episode, I know he's a piece of shit. I know he deserves everything that happened to him. But a part of me kind of felt bad. I don't know. Did it feel like just watching him be a total loser? Even when he went and talked to his mom, he went and talked to Alicent, and he wanted some advice because the council doesn't listen to him. Aemon is pretty much running his war council. His Criston Cole, who's a piece of shit, we talked about him last week. Criston Cole, who is his hand of the king, is conspiring behind his back with Aemon. He goes to talk to his mom. Like, I don't think he's ever done anything foul to his mom. And she's telling him, hey, just shut the fuck up and do your job. And I kind of felt for him. Because that's not right. He didn't ask for this, but now he's put into this position. He has to do what he needs to do. And that's just what it is. You took the throne, you made yourself king, or you didn't make yourself king, but Criston Cole made you king. And Christian is a character. I think we have to talk about Christian Cole. I feel like every week we have to talk about him, but not for like good reasons. He's now leading the army. He keeps failing upwards, and I don't think it's right. I don't think it's fair. And he's doing more terrible things this week. This week, Christian Cole could be arguably. I've said it again last week. I'll keep saying it. I'm gonna keep telling y'all this every time. All of this is happening because of him, and now they're calling him the Kingmaker because he did make Aegon king. Remember when I said I felt bad for Aegon because he didn't want any of this? That's part of the reason why. Because Kristen Cole put him in this position, him and Aemon conspiring behind his back. You already know Aegon. Last week we saw him say he's just as formidable as anybody else, and they laughed at him. He has a dragon. He's the king. He's wearing the armor of the conqueror. You would think he'd have some respect, but no one respects him. And ultimately, Christian Cole devised this plan. And at this point, I think he's starting to feel himself just a little bit too much. He's starting to feel like he is the man. He's coming up with plans. He's laying sieges. And he actually firsthand, this episode ends with him seeing firsthand just how devastating dragon power is. You think dragons are cool. You think watching, like, I was waiting for this entire time, but dragon combat is not cool. You saw the debris, the decay, and everything that was left on the ground. You saw how the people were struggling. It was a bloodbath. Remember what Daenerys did in the final season of Game of Thrones when she decimated King's Landing? Watching dragons do what they do is not like us watching it on TV, like me and you watching it on TV, like that shit's cool. But seeing it, you see the dragons don't just burn you, they burn you to ash. We see just the devastation, and Christian Cole realizes he did this. He set the kingdom afire, and now there's no turning back. Now it's really us getting together and attacking. At this point, there's no going back. And that's why I do want to take this time. I said earlier I want to talk about Daemon, because Daemon's character at this point now is the only one who can save Rhaenyra. Realistically, Daemon is her backbone. Remember in the first episode? Remember when Daemon said to Rhaenys, remember when Daemon told Rhaenys, let's both get on our dragons and go fight Vhagar together. Together we can take her out. And we found out it wasn't cap. Daemon wasn't lying. Arguably, if we look from the first season of House of the Dragons till now, if we would have listened to Daemon's character, if we followed him, none of this was happening. He is by far the most important character right now, and I never would have thought that. I don't know. What do y'all think? Like, watching this, what do y'all think of Daemon's character throughout the season, or just this season alone? I get it, right now he's going through a metamorphosis. He's having these wild dreams, and it's coming in and out. But looking at his character, looking at the transition, had Rhaenys listened to him, she would not have died. Had Rhaenyra listened to him, she would not have got usurped. And we see, but one thing we did see with Rhaenys not listening, and one thing we know for certain watching the dragons fight, is not only was Daemon right, but you can beat dragons. Not just any dragons, you can beat Vhagar. You can beat Vhagar, because if Meleys was able to adapt, we saw Rhaenys die. We saw Rhaenys die. Vhagar killed her. Vhagar is by far the most dangerous dragon in the show. Vhagar so far has 2 bodies. Realistically, the green team is winning. Vhagar killed Luke. Vhagar has now killed Rhaenys. Granted, Sunfire is fucked up. And I do feel bad for the dragon, but hey, 1 for 1, but Vhagar still has 2 bodies. But Rhaenys' death was not in vain. Now the black team has something to rally around. I just thought of Corlys. And the reason I just thought of Corliss was this man right here has literally lost everything. From last season to this season, Corliss has lost everything. He lost his dragons. He lost, forget the dragons. This episode alone, he lost his wife. Last season, he lost his son and he lost his daughter. And then he lost his fake grandson, but still his grandson Luke. This man has lost everything to Rhaenyra's cause. At this point, what does he have? I feel like what else does Corliss have to give? This man has not, if we take it back beyond just losing these people lives, this man lost the throne. He's lost everything he's worked so hard. I almost forgot. He lost his brother last season too. The Target, like, House Targaryen literally has taken everything away from this man. I'm curious as to his reaction when he finds out his wife is dead. Can he take it? I think his spirit is going to be broken. My spirit would be yours. My spirit, yours, all our spirits would be. If we went through half the stuff that this man, remember, if we take a look back at Corliss's entire life, when he was young, he was the man. He sailed the farthest. He's the richest person on the show. He's amounted and created so much wealth and power for himself. And you would think doing all that, grinding, essentially starting from the bottom and working your way up to the top, for you to lose your wife, lose your firstborn son, lose your firstborn daughter, which I want to say shout out to Lena having a cameo this season with Daemon. I thought Daemon was completely going to forget about her and focus mainly on Rhaenyra, but I like the fact that she was included. But he lost that. Then he lost his grandson. He still has Jace, but Jace is going to inherit the Iron Throne. He still has his granddaughters, but we spoke about that. They can't carry the Valerion name. Jace, when he becomes king, is going to be Jace Targaryen. So he's lost his entire lineage except he still has his bastard sons. And we're going to talk about that, right? Because I'm going to go ahead and say it. Y'all can judge me if y'all want. But imagine if he didn't have those kids. Imagine if he didn't do what he needed to do over the years and step out on Rhaenys. He would have lost everything. So even though it's kind of fucked up, it's shitty what he did, the fact that he has them, I mean, we can't be mad at that, right? But she always knew. Rhaenys always knew. And that's the killer. That's what's weird to me. Because as fierce as she is, as powerful as she is, I never would have thought that she would have allowed for any of this. She knew all along and she let it happen. I mean, her entire life, I was talking about Corliss, but it's not just Corliss. She lost a lot too. She was the queen that never was. We have to acknowledge that she was the queen that never was. So she lost her throne. She also lost her son. She lost her daughter. She lost her life and her dragon. I don't know if you guys noticed the scene where Meleys died, where she got her neck chopped. You could see the connection between her and Rhaenys. It's almost as though the moment Meleys died, Rhaenys knew it was over for her too. And I don't know, I felt the way about that. Because I wasn't expecting to feel anything for these characters. Like, last week, we talked about it. I didn't like her. I don't know. Let me know. How did her death make you feel? Like, last week, I didn't like her because I blamed her pretty much for everything. But watching her die, watching that connection be severed between a dragon rider and its dragon, knowing death is imminent, it gave me goosebumps. It gave me chills. And Man, I like we're in week 4 of House of the Dragons. We've been doing these live streams for a while now, and I don't think you guys have seen me as excited as I've been for this episode because it gave us everything. It gave us character. It gave us intrigue. We saw future plot points be settled, and we're watching something happen that I was not expecting, and that's Rhaenyra's character shifting. This is the Rhaenyra we wanted since the end of last season. The moment Luke died, we all wanted this version of Rhaenyra. The one that's going to say, no mas. The one that's going to say, this is my throne, I want it. And she was about this episode. Rhaenyra was willing to jump on her dragon and take herself to war herself. I sat there like, oh, okay, this is the Rhaenyra we've always wanted. This is the Rhaenyra we've always needed. But Aegon taught us something well. Rhaenyra doesn't know how to fight. If Aegon doesn't know how to fight, Rhaenyra doesn't know how to fight. So I'm glad she didn't go. But now that she realizes and she let loose the dragons, Rhaenyra is willing to burn down the entire kingdom for her dragons. Not for her dragons. She's willing to use her dragons to burn down the entire kingdom for the prophecy. Because it's bigger than this. We talked about it last week. And I think we can talk about it this week. It's bigger than the throne. When it comes to House of the Dragons, when it comes to what Rhaenyra's fighting for, Rhaenyra's not just fighting for the throne. She's not just fighting to be the queen of the 7 kingdoms. Rhaenyra is fighting for the future. She's fighting against the long night. Everything she has, everything she needs, she has, and she has to protect the kingdom. And that's where the big disconnect comes when it comes between her side and the Greens. Like, I don't know how anybody could be on their side. As much as I did not want to like Rhaenyra, I have to be on her side. She stands for something greater than herself. It's not just greed. It's not just power. It's not just her dad made her the heir. It's about the prophecy. And she even doubles down and reaffirms that to Jace that it's not about her. It's not about the kingdom. It's about the Song of Ice and Fire. And I can't be mad at that. And after everything we found out, Alicent, I feel like now's a good time to really talk about Alicent, right? Because Alicent, her character, I don't know. We spend so much time with the character Alicent. The first season when she was young, I liked her actress. I liked her storyline up until pretty much last week's episode. Because at this point, I feel like her character doesn't have much to do. Like, Alicent, there's nothing left for Alicent to do for us. There's nothing left for her to show. But we did find out she's maybe pregnant with Christian Cole's kid, which, who cares, right? Like, he can't have it anyway. So that's another subplot I don't feel like needs to go anywhere. Her character at this point, I feel like, is taking up screen time. I don't know how you guys feel about her, but I'm not enjoying watching her anymore. But as the show's going on, I don't feel like we're gonna see much of Alicent anymore. It's really wartime. It's really go-to time, and I was critical of the Green faction, but if we look at the Blacks, calling them the Blacks will never not be funny. But if we look at Team Black, R.I.P. Rhaenys, I think I'm gonna have to update the graphic because Rhaenys being at the corner here and she's gone. They've lost the dragon, so right now they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, they don't have 5 dragons. They have Baela, Jace, Rhaenyra, and Daemon. With the death of Rhaenys, they lost the dragon, and Oh. Oh. I'm realizing something. I'm realizing something. They're in trouble. Rhaenyra's faction is in deep trouble. The blacks are. They have 4 dragons left. And only one of them is combat ready. Damon and his dragon are the only ones combat ready. Granted, Aegon's dragon's down for the count. Again, we don't count Helena's dragon. But I said it earlier in the stream, Vhagar has 2 bodies, but those 2 bodies are so crucial. The scales have tipped. Rhaenyra's not letting Jace go out to fight. Rhaenyra, Rhaenyra's dragon isn't that big compared to Vhagar. Oh no. This is getting interesting. This is getting interesting. Daemon Aemon Targaryen most likely is the most powerful character on the show right now. Think about it, especially what just happened to Aegon. Aegon's fucked up. We saw he burned Aegon and incapacitated Aegon. Aegon's firstborn son has been killed with the whole blood and cheese incident. Aemon is oh. I remember making a video last week where I was talking about Aemon Targaryen's character, and I was talking about how he's overlooked because he never had a direct path to the throne. He can't sit on the Iron Throne. But with Aegon incapacitated, his firstborn son dead, him with the most powerful dragon, he killed Meleys. Nothing's gonna stop. We even saw this episode. Daemon had a vision where we thought he was following Aemon, but it was actually a version of himself. Because we know Aemon's character, his whole thing is Daemon Jr. He's trying to be like his uncle. He's trying to be Daemon Targaryen. And now he has battle experience. He might. No, he does have more dragon combat than Daemon. Daemon has been to war. Daemon has used his dragon in combat before. But it's always against people. It's always against humans. Daemon hasn't fought another dragon. But Aemon hasn't just fought another dragon. He's fought 2. So now we're in a position where it's going to be Daemon is on a collision course with Aemon. That is happening. But now Daemon has to deal with the fact that Aemon has 2 bodies. Vhagar, we know Vhagar as the biggest dragon. Vhagar being the oldest dragon. Vhagar was here during the conquest. When Aegon Targaryen and his 2 sisters landed, Vhagar was there. Vhagar has seen combat far longer than Caraxes. And now that Daemon has actually, not Daemon, but Aemon has actually fought and killed 2. Luke was an accident, whatever. But strategically used Vhagar in combat, that's more experience than Daemon has. Granted, Daemon's older, probably the better swordsman, the better dragon rider for sure. And we did see with the fight between Meleys and Vhagar, we did see that Meleys was able to hurt Vhagar. Meleys was able to use its speed. Vhagar is hurt right here in the gut area. Vhagar is hurt. That can play a factor. Daemon having experience can also play a factor. It's gonna be interesting because at this point, it's not even about. This is not Game of Thrones. This is House of the Dragons, Dance of the Dragons. It's not about the political machinations of people. It's not about who can we betray, who can we usurp the throne from. It's about the Dance of the Dragons. It's about who can survive, who's gonna kill more. This side, that side. It's blood, it's mayhem, it's strategy, it's resources, it's not alienating your allies. It's so much going on in this season, so much going on in this episode, so much to see. And they're saying that this is the second of 4 seasons. So dragons are dropping, bodies are dropping, the war is in full effect. Rhaenyra has a tough choice to make. Because with Rhaenys dead, the only other available dragon rider she has, aside from herself, is Jace and Baela. But is she gonna put Jace and Baela at the forefront of battle? Is the real question. Because Jace is her firstborn son. Rhaenyra is still a mother at the end of the day, and she's still. Remember, this is it's only been a couple weeks that she lost her newborn son, her newborn daughter, and did we know the sex of the child? It was a girl. Her newborn daughter, and she lost her son. So she's gonna be hesitant to send her firstborn out in combat. She's also going to be hesitant. So does that mean that Rhaenyra is willing to take Baela to the front lines? Because Baela's not her daughter. Baela is her stepdaughter, but Baela is Daemon's daughter. Daemon is MIA at this point. We do know Daemon is actually working for Rhaenyra. He's actually trying his best to raise an army for her. But the question is she gonna sacrifice Baela over Jace? Is she gonna send? Because Jace wants to go out. Jace is the heir, and Jace said something. This episode was interesting because even though it's not about the political maneuverings, this war is for Rhaenyra's legitimacy. So if Rhaenyra dies, Jace is a bastard. Off rip, he's gonna lose everything. No one's gonna rally behind him. All he's gonna have is his dragon, and he's gonna be known as a bastard. So he can't risk Rhaenyra going out, but at the same time, Rhaenyra is a mother. Rhaenyra can't risk losing her firstborn son after she lost her other son. It's bringing up an interesting dynamic, really, between these two characters. Can Rhaenyra allow this to go on? I don't know. I really want to know your guys' perspective on this all. Do y'all think that if Rhaenyra allowed Jace to fight, is that something that's gonna happen? And if she finally does, because this being a prequel, even if you haven't read the books, you can kind of get an understanding of how it's all gonna end. And when I mean how it's all gonna end, we know Daenerys comes along and she has white hair. So we can put 2 and 2 together and know Jace isn't reproducing with anybody. So Jace is going to die. I don't know if that's a spoiler for anybody. My bad. But Jace is going to die. Because the Targaryens still 169 years from now, we still see Daenerys. We still saw Viserys, her older brother. The Targaryens rule. So they don't have brown hair. So Jace dies ultimately. But what does that mean for... And remember last week, not just that, the more I think about it, the more 2 and 2 come together. Because Rhaenyra has other kids with Daemon, and she sent those kids off with Rhaena. Remember last week when Rhaena was sent off with the dragon eggs that will ultimately become Daenerys' dragons, and she's saving the lineage of House Targaryen? Even though she's not in this episode, the fact that Baela's characterization is so important, it leans so heavy that we can speculate later on in the season to know what happens. We know she survives because the kids survive, because that's how they have to reproduce. That's how they repopulate House Targaryen. But with her survival, the interesting aspect becomes because she doesn't have a dragon and Bela does, is Rhaenyra gonna send Bela out? Bela doesn't have any experience, and we saw in the same situation with Aegon. When granted, Aegon was tripping. Not only does Aegon have zero battle experience, where's Aegon? Because I don't want to dirty Bela's name and image by talking about Aegon while he's not even on screen. So let's just get my guy up here. So he has no battle experience. He's never been in a real fight. He can't even. You know what was interesting this week's episode? We found out that he can't even speak High Valyrian. He can't even speak High Valyrian. Oh, I was fixing my screen, my bad. But he can't speak High Valyrian. He can't fight. He had one too many of these. He was drunk driving a dragon. Let's talk about that for a second. He was drunk driving a dragon and he got destroyed. But he doesn't have the experience, and he went and we saw how that panned out. So is Rhaenyra gonna do the same thing to Bela? If Vhagar catches Bela, oh man, this is interesting. So if all the dragons end up fighting and killing each other, that means Vhagar is gonna collect more bodies. So the interesting thing is, who is the next dragon that the Greens are gonna kill? At this point, last week I said that the Greens were losing the war, and they were realistically, the Greens were losing the war, but I think the Blacks' indecision caused something. I don't know, like they lost Otto Hightower, but yet none of them have died yet. They have, I mean, Aegon is not dead. Even Sunfire, even though his dragon's fucked up, his dragon's not dead. They haven't lost anything. Rhaenyra's squad, on the other hand, is still losing. I feel like every time they get into a direct confrontation with the Blacks, the Greens come out on top. They lost Rhaenys this episode. Rhaena is gone because she's been sent off. Daemon is realistically the only character who's saving her right now. Corlys is probably going to be fucked up next episode. Think about it. When he finds out his... At this point, does he even have an allegiance to House Targaryen? Now that I sit back and think about it, his wife was Targaryen. So yeah, he's gonna sit with his wife. He's gonna ride or die with her. But ride or die means ride or die. So if Rhaenys is dead, the ride or die is over. Right? So that's gonna be an interesting aspect. Because with Rhaenys being gone, that severs the Valyrian fleet from Rhaenyra. That loses their main dragon rider who with actual combat experience. And I don't know how I feel about her death, because part of me feels like she wanted to die, because the moment Vhagar showed up, she could have banged it. We saw in this episode, her dragon is faster than Vhagar's. It was able to weave, and if she wanted to, she could have left. But she decided, she thought, I don't know if it was hubris, or I don't know if she thought that she could somehow, if she kills Vhagar, she can end the war herself. Because remember, a lot of people, myself included, are blaming her for it all. Had she killed them all during the coronation of Aegon? Remember that scene where she bust out the dragon pit while they were coronating, Aegon's coronation, while they were coronating Aegon? She could have ended the war right then and there, one Dracarys, but she flew away. But now she had to deal with her consequences. Vhagar is a problem. Vhagar is a big problem that should have been handled in it's she's reaping what she sowed. Had she listened to Damon in the first episode of this season, from what I saw of Maylee's and what I saw her do to Aegon, now I'm 100%, no, I'm 1,000% sure had they just all just jumped on their dragon. I'm talking about the moment they found out about the usurpation, had Rhaenys, Daemon, Rhaenyra, Jace, Luke, and Baela jumped on their dragons and flew to King's Landing, I don't think we're having this conversation, right? No, seriously. Look at them. And not just them. They hop on their dragons. They send Corlys and his fleet. Because remember, they talked about it this episode. I don't know if you guys peeped, right? When they were talking, they talked about the blockade and how the blockade that Corlys is setting up is starving the people of King's Landing. We saw that in episode 2, and now they reiterated this episode. So had Rhaenyra come with the Valerian fleet, 6 dragons, they could have done this. Because we saw firsthand, Aegon and his dragon is useless. So now we focus on Vhagar. Melee's was no match for Vhagar. But if Melee's, Caraxes, that's Daemon's dragon, Syrax, Rhaenyra's dragon, let's throw Jace in there too, from good measure. I don't even know Jace's dragon name. Let's throw Jace and his dragon in there for good measure. 4v1 on Vhagar, I feel like that's good enough to take Vhagar out. I feel like 2v1, if Daemon felt like 2v1 was enough, 4v1 was enough. Now that leaves 2 dragons. That leaves Baela with Moondancer, and that leaves Luke with Arax. Remember Luke's dragon? It was kind of fast. Vhagar chomped it one time, right? Aegon's dragon is not that much bigger than Rhaenyra's dragon, and it's not that much bigger than Baela's dragon. So those two, we saw Aegon in action. Those two could have beat this could have been had the Targaryens did what they needed to do. Jump on dragon back, fly there. It would not have extended to where it extended to. I don't know. That's my thoughts. You guys feel the same way? Like, I don't know. I'm just thinking I would have done it. Granted, you didn't want to cause death. Rhaenyra, I want to give Rhaenyra some props. She did try to exhaust every option of peace. But the moment they usurped your throne, you should have known something should have came over. You should have had the understanding that there is no peace. These people never liked you. But I do feel like it is setting up a last minute Daemon save. And what I mean by a last minute Daemon save, I feel like this season, Daemon is in Harrenhal. Daemon is trying to amass a host for Rhaenyra. He's doing his part, and he's also having these visions where he's fighting with himself, or not just fighting with himself, but people see Daemon as a character who wants the Iron Throne. And even my understanding of Daemon for a while was that he wants the throne. But if you look at what Daemon's been doing, Daemon realistically isn't selfish. I mean, granted, he moves like a pompous prince would. Like, imagine if you're a prince. Imagine you're Prince Daemon, prime example. Your brother becomes king. You're now the heir because he has no son. You have a dragon. No one can step to you. And then he names his niece his heir. Whatever, cool. You guys fucked over. It's all good. But every step of the way, he's never betrayed House Targaryen. I remember. Did you guys remember last season when Corlys almost disrespected Viserys and Daemon was not having it? Even though his brother exiled him, he was not having it. Even when he was arguing with Rhaenyra earlier this season, And he was telling her, I'm raising an army for you. Like I feel like everything he's done has always been for the benefit of his family, for the love of his family. I mean, I'm not excusing him as a character. Like, Damon's an asshole. Even this episode, even when he's raising Bannerman, like, he talks with a level of high and mightiness that just rubs the common folk wrong. But he's always doing what's right for House Targaryen. He's in Harrenhal right now. Like, you guys seen Harrenhal? Like, watching the episode, that place sucks. It's raining, it's groggy, it's weird, it's terrible. But he's there, meeting with the Blackens, or meeting with the Oscar Tully, the grandson of the, like, even Larys's uncle, the keeper of Harrenhal. Everyone he's meeting with is incompetent, but he's still trying to raise an army. And not just that, this entire episode, everyone's talking about Harrenhal, and the fact that Daemon is there. And Kristen Cole and Aemon went around, and they went into Rook's Rest to get that small castle, even though it's not worth anything. But everyone's eyes is on the prize. The fact that Daemon's there, he doesn't even have an army, and they're threatened by the fact that he's there. So we know he's more than formidable, but at the same time, Vhagar, like, no matter how the cookie crumbles, it always comes back to Vhagar. I feel like this, if we take House of the Dragons and we apply it to, like, modern world, real world stuff, it'd be easy to say, like, all the politicking, everything we have going on, we can do so much when it comes to House of the Dragons. We can do so much military posturing and might. The world can stand however they want, but whoever has the biggest weapons of mass destruction dictate the rules of engagement. In the real world, like, people talk about the US, we criticize the country and all that. Like, people talk about the country all the time, but we got the biggest guns. If you take that and apply it to House of the Dragons, Rhaenyra has the legitimacy. Rhaenyra has the experience. She has the vets. Like, that ain't matter. Meleys and Rhaenys have been fighting for a while. Like, the fact that she said she's combat ready, that goes to show that even before House of the Dragons, like, before she became the queen that never was as a princess, that goes to show that she's been in war. She has combat experience. Daemon has combat experience. We know Corlys has traveled the world. He has combat experience. All that doesn't matter when you have a dragon the size of a castle that can shred dragons in one bite. Like, it wasn't just Luke's dragon that was stomped out by Vhagar. It was also us watching Rhaenys just die. That's really it. Like, ultimately, at the end of the day, you have the biggest weapon, you have the biggest gun. Like, let's look at this image here. Let's pause for a second, right? I just threw the picture of Vhagar up here. Vhagar fighting Meleys. Look at this image. Vhagar is cooking Meleys to a crisp. Meleys is big. Meleys is the second oldest dragon. Vhagar was the biggest. Her dragon is the second biggest dragon, and you see the size difference? Like, just looking at this image here, look. Vhagar's flames totally encapsulated Meleys. How do you beat that? How do you... I mean, there is one way to really beat it. And you see, if Vhagar is like this, if Meleys was able to do this, she didn't die there. When Vhagar and her first fought, Rhaenys was able to survive that first initial encounter. So she's Targaryen, and that's kind of why they didn't burn to a crisp. Even though Aemon, Dracarys, both of them, it wasn't that hurt Aegon as much, because we saw Rhaenys she had like soot and all that over her face, but it wasn't that. Targaryens are somewhat resistant to fire, so it wasn't that. It's the neck chomp. But in this scene, that size, Vhagar doing that. Now imagine if they go up there with 3 other dragons, right? That's happening to Melees, Caraxes, Daemon on Caraxes, tearing at one ring, Rhaenyra and Jace at another ring. This kaputs. But at this point, on a 1v1, when it comes to dragon fights, we're here. We're here. You can't beat Vhagar. You can't beat Vhagar. So let me look at the chat for a second and answer some chat questions. Dr. Hirokawa says, Vhagar is a problem. I agree. Vhagar is the biggest problem there is. Like, no matter how you slice it, Vhagar is just Vhagar. He's the biggest problem in here. So at this point, there is no solution for Vhagar at this point. Melees is dead. Team Rhaenyra can't spare any more dragons. And Dr. Hirokawa completely agrees. Yeah, Vhagar, you can't, like, there's no stopping it. I'm curious to know, or not curious to know, but I'm curious to see how everything plays out. Because now that the dance has officially begun, and now that dragons are falling out of the sky and people are dying, what's next? What's next for Team Black? And the reason I say Team Black specifically is Vhagar is huge. And not just the fact that Vhagar is huge, Rhaenys is dead. I'm going to keep harkening back to Rhaenys being dead, because Rhaenys being dead isn't just about Rhaenys. Because with Rhaenys being dead, it's going to shatter one of their biggest supporters. I don't remember last season, in the first season, when Corlys was upset at King Viserys. He took his fleet and left. I remember this episode, he criticized Rhaenyra. He said, where has that woman gone? He had to step up in the council today. And I say today like I was there, right? In today's episode, he had to step into the Black Council and assume a position of power. I feel like Corlys is out. Like, I've lost too much to this war. Like, I've lost too much to your throne. Like, realistically, Corlys has lost almost everything because of Rhaenyra. So I feel like Corlys is going to wipe his hands clean. That's going to leave Rhaenyra without a navy, without money, without her biggest war combatant. Like, it's so fucked at this point. I feel like I jinxed them, because last week when I was talking about the Blacks being, they're winning, but realistically they're not, because they're losing everything now. Look how the tides of power shift. Had Rhaenys killed Aegon and Aemon, the war's over. Hell, had Rhaenys killed Aemon, not Aemon, but had Rhaenys killed Aegon, the war is over. That's why I feel like when Aegon fell and Rhaenys thought about leaving and she heard Vhagar's roar, she turned around. She could have left, but she turned around because she felt like she could have beaten, not that she could have beaten, but had she beaten Vhagar, her legend would have been unreal at this point. The queen that never was, sadly, never got to enjoy, like, I'm not gonna say she didn't get to enjoy her life, because she lived a full life. Like, she raised kids, she has grandkids, she's in her older years, so she lived a full life. But the way she died in the last vestige of glory in support of Rhaenyra, I feel like the biggest thing of her cause was, yes, she was overlooked as the queen that never was. But she thought if she could install Rhaenyra on the Iron Throne, if she can put Rhaenyra there, it was worth it. It was worth her 2v1ing those dragons. Remember, Sunfire was gone. Like, I'm going to take a second to actually look at Sunfire one more time, because Sunfire, it's tragic watching this dragon fall out the sky. And remember, Aegon is not a fighter, so Sunfire has never seen real combat. Look how fucked up it was. Rhaenys saw that. So if Rhaenys thought just maybe, if she could have beaten Vhagar, she could have saved the realm. She was never the queen, but had she brought peace to the realm, could you imagine what the history books would say about Rhaenys Targaryen, the queen that never was? Imagine, she was passed over. She could have killed Aegon and kept the throne, or installed, like when they were usurping, she thought of Corlys wanted to usurp. Remember, the transition of power between King Jaehaerys and Viserys wasn't so seamless. She was supposed to queen. She was supposed to be the queen that sat on the Iron Throne. She has dragons. Her kids have dragons. She could have been went to war against Viserys. Corlys has more than enough money to go to war against the crown. But no, she's kept her dignity. And in this scene, she thought to herself, if I can beat Vhagar, if I can kill Aemon right here, if my dragon is able to take both of them down, yes, I will never sit on the Iron Throne. But history would have remembered her fondly. The queen that never was, but the queen that was able to save the kingdom, or save the queendom at this point, looking beyond herself at Rhaenyra. They would have looked at her like she could have been selfish, but no, she took a back seat. She fought 2 dragons to install her cousin's daughter on the throne. So it was never about her sitting on the throne. It was always about the fact that a woman should be allowed to sit on the throne. If Rhaenyra is allowed to sit on the throne, Baela could sit on the throne. Rhaena, even though Corlys has his bastard kids, she would have been justified in saying, no, you can't legitimize them because women can sit on the Iron Throne. Women can sit on seats of power. Women can sit in Driftmark. Sorry about that. Sorry for your ears. But she looked at Alan's face and she realized, you are not mine. You are going to inherit everything. This guy, Alan, I just feel it in my bones. He's going to inherit everything Corlys has to offer. And now Rhaenys is not going to have any direct lineage to the Iron Throne, any direct lineage to Driftmark, any direct lineage to Dragonstone. Essentially, her line dies with her. So in that moment, I feel like she felt that she had to fight Vhagar, and we ultimately know how it turned out. But it is sad to see this character go. It is sad to see this actress go, because I mean, she's been with us since the first episode, and now Targaryens are dying. Like, Viserys was the first Targaryen to actually die, but he died of a natural cause. But now they're dying. They're dying from each other. And we saw a little bit of symbolism this episode when Alicent picked up the little toy dragon she gave Viserys, and it fell, and the dragon split. The House of the Dragon is there's no coming back from here. You could have eventually maybe talked about peace, eventually maybe came to an accord, even though war had restarted. But at this point, no, there's no more. Rhaenys is dead. Aemon has tasted blood. I wouldn't be surprised if Aemon felt like he can go fight. I wouldn't be surprised if now he feels like he can go fight Daemon. Or now he feels like he's king. At this point, there's not much left to do. The sides have been chosen. First blood, well, not first blood, but Rhaenyra has took another L yet again. Vhagar has 2 bodies. Damn. I I'm gonna take this time to actually. I'm gonna take this drink right here to actually take some time for Rhaenys, because she did what she could. She fought, and ultimately, this is for Rhaenys Targaryen, the queen that never was. But guys, that was this week's episode. I feel like this week's episode was crazy, but it was the type of crazy that I was looking for. This week's episode gave us everything we could actually want. And I'm excited, because it's not just first blood that's been drawn. It's a Targaryen princess. You know what's crazy about all of this, realistically? Is Rhaenys was she's like the actual last person to actually have any ties to Jaehaerys, the king before Viserys. She's the last Targaryen with an actual relationship to the last legitimate Targaryen ruler. And her legitimacy was never questioned. And now she's dead. That means now it's a free-for-all. House Targaryen is divided. Everyone's gonna do whatever the fuck they feel. And I feel like the last bit of hope that the House Targaryen had died with her. The last bit of hope for peace ended with Rhaenys. It's sad. Like, Viserys is rolling in his grave. Jaehaerys is rolling. Had he made her queen in the first place, we're not here. But alas, and she didn't die of like running away. She stood as a true Targaryen, looked Vhagar in the eye, looked Aemon in the eye, and tried to end the war right then and there. She could, like, it's crazy. Aemon spared her. No, like, they could have let her go. But at this point, she spared their lives. They could have let her go, but no. She is the last vestige of House Targaryen, and I think she deserves our respect. But with her dying, I don't think it's just a fracture of House Targaryen. I think it's a fracture of Rhaenyra's power. Because now, Corlys is going to fill away. Baela is going to fill away. Remember, when Rhaenyra was gone and didn't know what to do, Baela summoned her to Dragonstone. That's why she went to go see Corlys. This episode was ultimately her goodbye swan song. She saw her husband. She saw his bastard kids. She saw Baela. She didn't see Rhaena. Rhaena's going to be devastated. She didn't see Rhaena. And she tried to correct Viserys' mistake. All this is happening because it's Aegon, Aemon, Alicent, the Greens. This should have never. She did everything she could. And even though I've been critical of her character, even though I was harsh on the fact that I feel like she could have had the war ended long time ago, she deserved a better death than this. And again, I'm going to stand by it. When I saw her die, I knew she was dead the moment Vhagar chomped on Meleys's neck. When her dragon looked at her, and the transition of the scene, you saw the life go out of Meleys's eyes, and in that same breath, you see it transition to this scene. Rhaenys knew it was over. There's nothing else she could have done. She tried. She tried. And now the blacks have to deal with that. Rhaenyra's gonna have to deal with that. And it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough because I don't think they're gonna wait for Daemon. Like I said it earlier in this video, I'm gonna reiterate one more time. Daemon Targaryen is their last hope. He has the oldest dragon left on their side. He has the most experience. And if he can't raise an army in Harrenhal, if he can't meet Vhagar in open combat at this point, Kristen Cole has the army. He has the manpower. They have Vhagar. Granted, I'm gonna give Rhaenys another shout out again, because Aegon and Sunfire's out the picture because of her. She fucked Aegon's dragon up. Like, that's because of her. So she did what she did. Like, she did what she could. I feel like the Blacks now, because Rhaenyra doesn't have the claim to legitimacy like Aegon does, I feel like now it's gonna be like a baton race. Meleys and Rhaenys did what they could. Now they're gonna have to pass it on to Daemon. It's all on him. No one believes in him. Rhaenyra doesn't believe in him. I don't think you guys believe in him as much as I do. He's seeing visions. Like, I feel like his death is imminent because he's seeing visions. He's doing all these things, but he's Daemon Targaryen. He has a Valyrian steel sword, and I believe in him. But guys, that's gonna be it for this week's live stream. Like, I was super giddy about this episode. I'm gonna watch it again. I'm gonna really look at the dragon battle because that was my favorite part of it all. But guys, thanks for tuning into the live stream. I really appreciate it. We went on for about an hour today because it was the best episode. But guys, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you again next week. And don't forget to subscribe. And I'll be dropping more House of the Dragon videos because I'm going to dive deep into that scene with Vhagar, Meleys, and Sunfire because that needs to be analyzed. We're going to do that this week. But guys, I'll see you guys next week. But guys, that's it for this video. I'll see y'all next week. And until next time, binge on. Peace.